In the vast expanse of space, where countless species and civilizations stretch across the stars, there was one that stood out, one that had been underestimated for centuries, thought to be too young, too naive, and too fragile to make any real impact. Yet, the humans, often viewed as mere specks in the cosmos, were slowly becoming the most feared and respected force in the galaxy. Their ascent had been a mystery to most, a riddle that even the most advanced alien races couldn't quite solve. It wasn't their technology that set them apart, though their ships were sleek and powerful. It wasn't their numbers, though their population spread across a growing empire. No, what made humans unique was their unyielding spirit. It was their heart, their drive, and their refusal to back down in the face of overwhelming odds. And now, the galaxy was about to witness just what that spirit could do when pushed to its limits. At the heart of the Council of Systems, an intergalactic body meant to keep peace among the many different species, there was growing unrest. An ancient species known for their vast intellect and complex politics had begun to stir, plotting to enslave and control lesser species for their own gain. They were patient, calculating, and far more dangerous than anyone had realized. But they had made one fatal mistake. They underestimated the humans. The first skirmish had been small, almost unnoticed by the wider universe. A single human ship, against overwhelming odds, managed to strike a decisive blow against one of the most powerful factions in the galaxy. The Council, initially dismissive, now had their attention focused squarely on Earth. The humans had made their move, and it sent shockwaves across the stars. As tensions mounted, and more ships clashed in the cold depths of space, humans began to reveal something that no one had anticipated. Their warriors, untrained in the traditional arts of space combat, but driven by an inner fire, began to outfight, outthink, and outmaneuver the galaxy's finest military minds. Where others relied on sheer power or numbers, humans fought with ingenuity, courage, and an unwavering belief in their right to exist and thrive. But it wasn't just the humans' military prowess that caught the galaxy's eye. There was something about them that resonated with even the most distant alien races. Despite the chaos and violence, humans clung to something that many had forgotten: a sense of unity, of loyalty, of purpose. They weren't just fighting for territory or resources. They were fighting for the survival of their people, their future, and the values they held dear. For the first time in centuries, the Council of Systems found itself at a crossroads. The once untouchable powers of the galaxy were now facing an unpredictable force, one that could no longer be ignored. And the humans, they weren't backing down. In the shadows, however, things were brewing. Alliances were forming between species who had previously seen each other as enemies. The older races of the galaxy, once secure in their positions of power, were beginning to fear the rising tide of humanity's influence. Some sought to sabotage the humans, while others secretly admired their drive and ambition. But deep within the Council, there were whispers of a more sinister plot, a plan to crush humanity before it could become too powerful. And then came the message. It was brief, cryptic, and delivered by an unknown source. The humans are the key to the future, but they are also the greatest threat to the present. If we do not act quickly, they will topple everything we've built. The message sent waves of panic through the Council. For the first time, the most powerful beings in the galaxy realized that they were facing something truly formidable. Something they hadn't planned for. Something they could not control. But even as they scrambled to figure out their next move, another message arrived. This one was from a human ship, a simple transmission to the Council. "We're not asking for your permission. We're here to stay." The message echoed through the galaxy, and its implications were clear. The humans weren't just asserting their place. They were demanding it. They had no intention of being a footnote in the history of the galaxy. They were here to write their own story. As the battle lines were drawn and alliances shifted, The stage was set for the most intense conflict the galaxy had ever seen. The Council of Systems, once a beacon of peace and cooperation, was now a powder keg, waiting for the smallest spark to set it off. In the midst of all this, one question remained. Would humanity's spirit be enough to change the course of galactic history, or would the ancient powers of the Council prove too entrenched, too powerful to overcome? The answer would not come easily, and as the first full-scale war loomed on the horizon, one thing was certain: this was just the beginning. The fate of humanity and the entire galaxy rested in the hands of those who dared to fight for something greater than themselves. The battle for space had begun, and the Council of Systems had just met its match. But as the final words of the human transmission faded into the dark, cold expanse of space, a new message flickered across the comms. It was a signal from a human warship, one that hadn't been seen before. The message was simple, and it left every system in the galaxy holding its breath. We've perfected war. Now, let's show you what that means. The Council could no longer afford to underestimate humanity. The transmission from the human warship hung in the cold emptiness of space, reverberating through the void like a challenge. We've perfected war. Now, let's show you what that means. The words weren't just bold. They were a declaration of intent, a promise. But to the Council of Systems, they were also a threat. What could it possibly mean for humanity to perfect war? It had been centuries since any civilization had truly perfected combat. The older species, with their centuries of military evolution, had long believed they were the ultimate masters of the battlefield. They were efficient, calculated, and ruthless when necessary. But the humans were unpredictable. They didn't fight like the rest of the galaxy. And that, in itself, was what terrified them the most. The Council, a once harmonious group of alien species bound by their mutual interests, was now a fractured entity. Debates raged in every corner of the Council chambers, with representatives of the oldest races arguing fiercely. Some called for immediate action, believing that humanity's rise was too dangerous to allow. Others, more cautious, suggested that they attempt to negotiate with the humans. Perhaps their aggressive message was simply a form of posturing, a way to establish leverage. But none could shake the nagging thought that something about the humans was different. At the heart of it all, however, was the looming question: how had they done it? How had humanity, a species once on the brink of extinction due to internal strife and conflict, developed such mastery in the art of war in such a short period? The answer wasn't clear to anyone. Not even the humans fully understood what they had unlocked, though there were whispers of a secret program, one buried deep within the bowels of Earth's military complex, a project that had been designed to harness the potential of human ingenuity in ways that no one could have anticipated. A few old records hinted at something called the Mindforge Initiative, an experimental program aimed at combining human will with the precision of advanced technology. What exactly it entailed remained classified, but those who spoke of it were often hushed by fear. At the core of humanity's newfound military prowess was their ability to adapt. When humans entered the galactic stage, they didn't rely solely on raw firepower like many of the established species. They adapted quickly to whatever came their way, using every weakness and exploiting every vulnerability. It wasn't just the size of their fleets or the power of their weapons. It was the way they fought. Every engagement was unique, every tactic unpredictable. The humans were not bound by tradition, nor were they afraid to innovate in the heat of battle. And that innovation had begun to turn the tide. One such story was that of the Titan-class battleship, the Vanguard *. Marvel of human engineering, it was unlike any ship the galaxy had ever seen. Where most warships relied on overwhelming firepower, the Vanguard * used something altogether different: adaptability. Its hull was a living, shifting design, able to reorganize its internal structure during combat to better withstand damage. Its weapons systems, still largely untested by alien standards, were able to change based on real-time analysis of the enemy's movements. The humans had learned to use their limited resources to full effect, creating ships that could outsmart their more advanced counterparts. But what truly set humanity apart was their captains, those brave individuals who commanded their fleets. They were not just strategists. They were visionaries, driven by a deep sense of survival and purpose. They were the embodiment of humanity's spirit, unyielding in the face of impossible odds. One such captain had recently made a name for himself in the conflict, Captain Alec. His reputation had spread like wildfire throughout the galaxy, and for a good reason. He was both unpredictable and brilliant. Where others saw a hopeless situation, he saw an opportunity. His most famous battle had been one fought with nothing but a handful of ships against an entire fleet of invading warlords. Against all expectations, Captain Alec had outmaneuvered them, using only a fraction of their resources to destroy them all. How had he done it? No one knew for sure, but the results spoke for themselves. And yet, despite all this innovation, despite all their victories, humanity remained an enigma to the rest of the galaxy. The question was always the same. What was driving them? Why were they willing to risk so much for something so uncertain? No other species in the galaxy could understand the fierce determination behind it. There were some in the Council who theorized that it was simply a matter of survival. Perhaps the humans were so desperate to secure their place in the stars that they would stop at nothing to achieve it. But there were others who saw something deeper, something that went beyond mere survival. There was a conviction in the human race, a belief in something greater than themselves. They weren't just fighting for survival. They were fighting for the right to exist on their own terms, and that made them dangerous. As the human warships continued to strike fear into the hearts of the Council, a growing movement began to take shape within the galaxy's more distant corners. Smaller, less powerful races, ones who had long been oppressed by the larger factions, began to take notice of humanity's victories. There was a growing sense of hope among these alien species that perhaps, if humanity succeeded, they too might find their freedom. Secret meetings were held in the darkest corners of space, where representatives from various systems whispered about the possibility of an alliance with the humans. They began to see the humans not just as conquerors, but as liberators. But there were others who feared this alliance more than anything. The larger powers, the ones who had ruled for centuries, were terrified of losing their dominance. If humanity was allowed to continue unchallenged, there was no telling how far they would spread or how much power they would accrue. They could not allow that. A swift, decisive strike was necessary, something that would destroy humanity's momentum before it could take root. As the war for dominance in the galaxy escalated, the Council's once unified front began to crack. Alliances shifted, old enemies found new common ground, and in the shadows, the first covert operations were being planned. The fear of humanity's rising influence was palpable, and many in the highest circles of power were already strategizing on how to handle this threat. But none of these plans could account for one thing. The humans were no longer playing by the same rules. They had broken free from the constraints that had bound the galaxy's other species for so long. They were inventing their own ways of waging war, ways that the Council had never even considered. And as the first battles of the Galactic War began, it became increasingly clear that humanity's unpredictability was their greatest weapon. The Vanguard led the charge once more, its engines blazing through the vacuum of space, ready to confront whatever awaited them. Captain Alec stood at the helm, his eyes fixed on the vast expanse before him. He knew the risks, he knew the stakes, but he also knew something the rest of the galaxy didn't. The humans had something that no other species could match. They had heart. They had a fire that couldn't be extinguished, no matter how fierce the battle. And as long as they had that, they would never back down. The ship's sensors blinked to life as the enemy fleet appeared on the horizon. Thousands of warships, their massive forms casting shadows over the stars. The odds were impossible. But Alec didn't flinch. He had fought this battle, 1,000 times in his mind. It was time to show the galaxy what humanity could do. As the first shots were fired and the battle erupted into chaos, the human forces surged forward with a relentless fury. The Council's best ships, the ones that had long been considered invincible, began to crack under the pressure. The humans were everywhere, their ships darting and weaving in unpredictable patterns, striking with precision and speed. But even as the humans gained ground, the Council's forces fought back fiercely. This was not going to be an easy victory, and the humans knew it. But they had something the Council lacked: the will to win, no matter the cost. And with every battle, every victory, they grew stronger. But as the war raged on, one thing became clear to the humans, and to the rest of the galaxy. This was only the beginning. And the real test of humanity's spirit, its resolve, was still to come. The Vanguard tore through the void, its engines thrumming with power, as Captain Alec led the charge deeper into the heart of enemy territory. His hands gripped the controls tightly, every movement calculated, every instinct heightened. The enemy fleet was vast, a sea of warships that seemed to stretch endlessly in every direction. But Alec wasn't daunted. He had seen worse. He had faced down the impossible before. The humans were never meant to win, and yet here they were, defying the odds with every maneuver, every strike. As the battle raged on, it became clear that the humans' tactics were unlike anything the galaxy had ever encountered. They were using the environment, every asteroid, every piece of debris, anything they could find to their advantage. It was as if they had learned to bend space itself to their will, using the very chaos of war to fuel their strategy. It was the perfect embodiment of humanity's relentless creativity. They didn't just fight, they fought smart. They adapted to every shift in the battle, every change in the tide. The Council's forces, for all their technological might, were losing ground. Their precision was no match for the human unpredictability. The humans didn't just have the edge in innovation. They had the edge in determination. They weren't afraid to take risks. Where the Council ships held back, calculating every move with cold precision, the human ships darted forward, taking advantage of every gap, every opening. But the Council wasn't going to go down easily. A new wave of reinforcements arrived from the outer worlds, ships equipped with the latest weaponry, ships that could fire energy blasts powerful enough to annihilate entire fleets. They had been saving them for this moment. The tide had shifted. The humans were beginning to falter. Alec could see it in the way their ships weaved through the chaos, their maneuvers growing more desperate. The Vanguard was taking damage, its shields flickering as enemy fire pummeled its hull. But even as the battle seemed to swing in favor of the Council, Alec's mind never wavered. He knew they couldn't afford to retreat, not now, not when they had come so far. He glanced at the screen, at the swarm of enemy vessels closing in. The plan had always been to strike fast, to strike hard. But they were being pushed to the edge. The Vanguard had to make it through, had to reach the heart of the Council fleet. If they could deliver a decisive blow, they could turn the tide. The question was whether they could hold out long enough to deliver that blow. "Captain," the communications officer's voice crackled through the comms. "We've got reinforcements coming from the rear. A fleet of battle cruisers from the colonies. They'll be here in 5 minutes. 5 minutes. Alec glanced at the time. They had 5 minutes to hold on, to survive long enough to make that final push. His heart raced, knowing that every second mattered now. "All hands, brace for impact." Alec shouted. He slammed his fist on the console, sending the ship into a sharp roll to avoid a direct hit from an incoming blast. The Vanguard groaned, its hull straining under the force of the attack. But it held. But then came the worst news. From the rear of the battle, a dark shadow loomed, something bigger than any ship Alec had seen before. It was the Council's ultimate weapon, a massive dreadnought capable of erasing entire fleets in a single strike. The Abyssal a legend among the Council's forces, had arrived. Its sheer size was enough to blot out the stars as it cut through space toward them. Alec's eyes locked on the massive ship, his breath catching in his throat. This was it. The one ship that could turn the tide of the battle. The Abyssal wasn't just a warship. It was a symbol of the Council's power. Its weapons could rip through human ships like paper. And now, it was headed straight for them. "Captain," the communications officer said urgently, "we're not going to survive this. The Abyssal will tear us apart before the reinforcements even arrive." Alec didn't reply. He had no time for words. He focused on the readouts in front of him. There had to be a way. There had to be a way to take down the Abyssal before it crushed them all. He didn't know how, but he couldn't afford to fail. Not now, not after everything they had been through. He looked to his tactical officer, whose hands were flying over the control panel, trying to make sense of the overwhelming data. "Can we fire on the Abyssal?" Alec asked. "We could, but it won't make a difference," the officer said grimly. "Its shields are too powerful. No human weapon has ever come close to breaking through." Alec clenched his jaw, frustration boiling inside him. There had to be a weakness. All ships had weaknesses. He had learned that long ago. And then it hit him. "Set course for the Abyssal's engines," he ordered. "Full speed ahead. We're going to hit them where it hurts." The crew stared at him, disbelief crossing their faces. The Abyssal was a fortress. Its engines were protected by a shield twice as powerful as any human ship had. But Alec's mind was made up. If they couldn't destroy it outright, they could still cripple it. If they could take out its engines, they could slow it down, buy enough time for their reinforcements to arrive. "Do it," Alec commanded, his voice steady despite the mounting pressure. "We're not letting them win." The Vanguard accelerated, hurtling toward the massive dreadnought. The Council ships around them opened fire, but the Vanguard dodged and weaved, its shields flaring as each blast impacted. Alec's eyes stayed locked on the Abyssal, his hands never leaving the controls. The countdown to the reinforcements' arrival was ticking down, but it didn't matter. The Abyssal was too close now. They were in range. "Prepare for impact," Alec yelled, bracing for the inevitable. The crew scrambled, securing their stations as the ship veered straight toward the dreadnought's underbelly. The comms officer called out, panic in their voice. "The enemy is targeting our engines. They've locked on, Captain. We..." Alec didn't wait for the rest of the sentence. He slammed the Vanguard into a sharp dive, its nose pointing downward as they sped toward the Abyssal's belly. The collision was imminent, but so was their only chance at survival. The enemy was about to make its final strike. And then, just as the Vanguard drew closer, an explosion rattled the battlefield. It wasn't from the Vanguard. No, this was different. This was something bigger. A flash of light, brighter than 1,000 suns, erupted from the far side of the battlefield. The reinforcements had arrived, the ships from the colonies, but it was too late for one ship. The Vanguard was closing in, and the battle was far from over. The explosion that shook the battlefield sent shockwaves across space, and for a moment, all was chaos. The incoming reinforcements, a fleet of battle-hardened cruisers from the colonies, lit up the dark expanse of space with blinding firepower. The Abyssal, its hull already battered by the relentless assault from the Vanguard, suddenly found itself under a barrage from the new fleet. The enemy dreadnought's shields flared and crackled under the sheer intensity of the fire, and for the first time, it seemed to stagger. Captain Alec's hands gripped the controls, his eyes locked onto the new wave of incoming ships. This was the break they had been waiting for. The reinforcements had arrived just in time, their firepower overwhelming the Council's defense. The tides of the battle had shifted, but as Alec looked around the battlefield, something felt off. The **abyssal* had not yet been destroyed, and the reinforcements, though a welcome sight, were still vulnerable. The human fleet wasn't out of danger, not by a long shot. Alec's instincts screamed at him that there was something else at play, something more insidious lurking just beyond the edges of the battle. Then, from the dark reaches of space, it appeared. A shadowed form, almost imperceptible at first, slowly emerged from behind the **abyssal**. A sleek, advanced warship of unknown origin. Its design was nothing like anything Alec had ever seen before. No species in the galaxy had ships that moved like this. It was fast, its hull gleaming with a dark, almost metallic sheen, its edges sharp and precise. And worse, it was charging directly toward the heart of the human fleet. Alec's breath caught in his throat as his sensors began to light up with alarming readings. "What the hell is that?" he muttered under his breath, eyes narrowing in disbelief. The new ship wasn't just another dreadnought or battlecruiser. It was something entirely different. Its weapon systems were activating, and it was no longer just about the **abyssal**. This new threat had emerged from the depths of space, unnoticed by anyone until it was far too late. "Captain, this ship, it's not like anything we've seen before," the tactical officer said, her voice edged with panic. It's cloaked. We didn't even detect it until it was almost on top of us." Alec's mind raced. The cloaked warship. That was something far beyond the human technological level. The Council had the means to cloak their vessels, yes, but this was different. This ship wasn't just hiding from radar or sensors. It was manipulating space itself, bending light and energy to remain undetectable. A weapon like this couldn't have come from the Council, could it? Had someone else been pulling the strings all along? But before Alec could process the thought, the unknown ship fired. The blast was quick, precise, and horrifyingly powerful. A single shot that struck one of the human battlecruisers directly, obliterating it in a flash of light. The shockwave from the explosion rattled the **Vanguard**, and Alec could feel the tremor of it even in the ship's core. "Incoming fire, Captain. We can't evade." The voice of the tactical officer was laced with dread. Alec's mind snapped into focus. This was it. The humans had fought so hard, pushing back the Council's forces only to be blindsided by an entirely new threat. But there was something more to this. It wasn't just a random enemy ship. No, this was deliberate. It had been waiting, hidden, until the humans were at their most vulnerable. And now it was poised to destroy everything. "Get us out of here. Full speed, to the right." Alec barked, his voice cold with determination. They needed to escape the direct line of fire, give the reinforcements a chance to regroup. But as his crew scrambled to follow orders, Alec couldn't shake the feeling that they were being herded into a trap. He glanced at the display. The unknown ship wasn't the only threat. The **abyssal** had reactivated its own weapons. Now that the reinforcements were in range, its massive cannons fired, sending devastating beams of concentrated energy toward the incoming fleet. But it wasn't just the **abyssal** that posed a danger. As Alec watched, several other cloaked vessels began to appear, emerging from the darkness like specters of war. More ships, more than the humans had ever anticipated, were now coming for them. "This is no coincidence," Alec muttered under his breath. It was clear now. This was a coordinated attack. Someone had been pulling the strings from the very beginning, waiting for the humans to fight the Council's forces to the breaking point before unleashing this new, overwhelming assault. And now, they were caught in the middle of a far larger conflict than they had realized. "Captain, we're being overwhelmed," the comms officer shouted. "There's too many of them. We can't hold out much longer." The **Vanguard** jolted again as another hit landed, sending sparks flying from the walls. Alec's mind raced. The cloaked ships were too fast, too deadly. Their weapons were unlike anything the humans had faced before. And the abyssal asterisk was still out there, dealing damage with its devastating firepower. Desperation crept into his voice as he turned toward his crew. Is there any way to break their cloaking technology? Any way to fight back? The tactical officer swallowed hard, her face pale. I don't know, Captain. We don't have anything capable of detecting them. We're blind to their movements. Alec's heart pounded in his chest. This was their worst nightmare. A new enemy, with technology that outstripped their own, had appeared from the shadows. And they had been completely unprepared for it. Then we make them come to us, Alec said, his voice low and dangerous. He reached for the communication console, his mind calculating a course of action. Get me the rest of the fleet. We're not running. We're going to fight. But as the comms officer tried to reach the other ships, a new chilling realization hit Alec. The reinforcements from the colonies. They weren't responding. In fact, none of the ships in the human fleet were answering. They were all being jammed, their communications cut off by some unseen force. The unknown ships had disabled the human fleet's ability to coordinate, to fight as a unified force. Alec stared at the screen, panic starting to creep in. There was no one left, just the Vanguard asterisk. And the unknown enemy, moving in for the kill. And then, as if on cue, the comms officer's voice broke the silence. Captain, I'm receiving a transmission. Alec's heart skipped a beat. This was it. It could be the enemy, preparing to gloat, to finish what they had started. Or worse, what if it was someone else? Someone they hadn't accounted for. He leaned forward, the tension in the air palpable. Put it through, Alec said, his voice steady, though his pulse was racing. The screen flickered for a moment before a face appeared. Human, but not from any of the colonies. Someone familiar. Captain Alec. The voice was chilling. It's time you learned who you're really up against. The transmission crackled, and the face on the screen became clearer. A man in his mid-30s, rugged, with dark eyes that held an unsettling familiarity, stared back at Captain Alec. His expression was cold, distant, but what sent a chill down Alec's spine was the insignia on the man's uniform. It wasn't from any fleet Alec knew. It wasn't human. Not from the Council. Not from any faction that had ever been seen in the galaxy. The man's lips twisted into a grim smile. You're wondering who I am, he said, his voice smooth but chilling. The better question is, who are you, Captain Alec? Alec's heart stopped for a beat, confusion flooding his senses. What do you want? You're about to find out. The man replied, his eyes never leaving Alec's. I have been watching you, Captain. Watching all of you. For a moment, Alec's mind spun. This wasn't just another commander or general from the Council, nor was it some unknown species emerging from the dark. This was something different. It wasn't about the war at all, not anymore. It was about something far deeper. I'm afraid you've been playing into my hand, the man continued, a trace of amusement in his voice. The abyssal asterisk, the cloaked ships, the entire battle. It was all a distraction. A smokescreen. Alec's breath quickened. What do you mean? The man leaned forward slightly, his gaze piercing through the screen. You see, Captain, you've been fighting for survival, fighting for humanity. But the truth is, your fight was always part of something else, something much bigger. He paused, letting the words hang in the air, before continuing, his voice lowering to a menacing whisper. You're not the first humans to try and conquer the stars. The first attempt failed, but it's not over yet, not by a long shot. Alec's mind raced. His instincts screamed that he was missing something crucial, but he couldn't put the pieces together. This man, this strange figure, was part of something that reached far beyond the Council, beyond the war. You're part of an ancient order, the man went on, as if reading Alec's thoughts. An order that has been hiding in the shadows, manipulating events for centuries. Humanity was never supposed to rise, not the way you have. Alec felt the air grow thick with tension. His grip on the controls tightened. Who the hell are you? His voice came out harsher than he intended, but he couldn't control the rising anger. The man smiled again. You're so close, Alec. The truth is right in front of you. You are one of us. The words hung in the air like a trap snapping shut. You were always meant to lead, but you've been running from your true destiny. Alec shook his head, disbelief flooding him. This couldn't be real. The man was toying with him, trying to break him down, trying to make him doubt everything. But something in the back of his mind began to stir, a memory, an echo of something he had long buried. It had been years, but suddenly, it all came rushing back. The strange symbols he'd seen as a child, the cryptic words spoken by his father before he disappeared, the strange training he'd endured during his early days as a soldier. Your father knew, the man said, as if reading Alec's thoughts again. He knew that humanity's rise was no accident. He was part of it. He was part of us. Alec's mind shattered at the revelation. His father had been a part of this, had known all along. You see, the man continued, your fight wasn't just about survival. It was never just about survival. You were always meant to lead the new wave, to claim the stars for the humans, for the hidden order that has shaped the course of history. The word struck Alec like a punch to the gut. He couldn't breathe, couldn't think. This man, this enemy, had just revealed something that Alec wasn't ready to hear. His father had been a part of something he had never understood, something ancient and powerful, and Alec himself was somehow tied to it. But there was no time for reflection. The battle was still raging outside, and the Vanguard was caught in the middle of a war that was far beyond anything they had imagined. Alec's thoughts scrambled to find some kind of clarity, but the truth was too overwhelming. He was a puppet in someone else's game. The fight for survival, the war against the council, it had all been orchestrated, manipulated. He had been a tool all along. You can't stop this, the man said, his voice almost pitying. You're already too far in. Humanity is already a part of the greater plan. Alec's fists clenched, his anger flaring, but it wasn't just anger anymore. It was rage at himself, at the universe, at everything that had led him to this moment. He couldn't just accept this. He couldn't let this be the end. He wouldn't. You think you control everything. Alec spat, his voice low and dangerous. You're wrong. The man's smile faltered for the first time. You still don't get it, do you? You're one of us, Alec. You always have been. The war, the battles, they were never meant to be won by the council, by us, by anyone. It's about domination, control. And in the end, the humans will rise, just not in the way you think. Before Alec could respond, the screen flickered. The unknown man's image was replaced with static, and the transmission cut out. Alec stared at the screen, his heart racing. His mind was reeling, still trying to process everything the man had just told him. But before he could think further, another voice broke through the comms, this time from his first officer. Captain, the abyssal has been disabled. The cloaked ships are retreating. The reinforcements, our fleet, they've come through. Alec snapped out of his stupor, focusing on the battle once more. Despite the overwhelming odds, the unexpected twist had turned the tide. The abyssal was no longer a threat. The cloaked ships were scattering, trying to regroup. The reinforcements had arrived just in time, their firepower forcing the enemy to pull back. The humans had won, for now. But Alec knew this was only the beginning. The true battle was not with the council, not with the aliens. They were pawns in a much larger game. The man on the screen had made that clear. Humanity's fight had only just started, and Alec, now realizing the depths of his own connection to this mystery, understood one thing with chilling certainty. There was no escaping the hidden war that had been set in motion long before he ever joined the fight. And the true enemy wasn't some distant empire or alien species. It was something far more ancient, and it was only a matter of time before it returned. As the Vanguard and the reinforcements pushed the remaining Council forces back, Alex's thoughts raced. The stakes had never been higher, but in the back of his mind, something gnawed at him, the question that haunted him more than any battle ever could. Could he trust himself? Or was he, too, just another pawn in a game far older than the stars themselves? The battlefield had quieted, but the feeling of unease that hung in the air was palpable. Alex stood at the command bridge of the Vanguard staring out at the wreckage of the war that had just unfolded. The fleet had won, but the victory felt hollow. The unknown enemy had retreated, their advanced ships vanishing into the darkness of space. But something told Alec this was far from over. The comms officer's voice broke the silence. "Captain, the fleet is reporting victory. The Council forces are in retreat. We've secured the sector." Alec nodded slowly, but his mind wasn't on the victory reports. The words the mysterious man had spoken kept echoing in his mind. His father, the ancient order, the larger war, the truth of it all felt like a heavy weight pressing down on him. The mission, the fight for humanity's survival, had always been more complicated than he had ever imagined. What had started as a desperate struggle against an overwhelming force had unfolded into a much larger mystery. And in the midst of all this, Alec had discovered that he wasn't just fighting for humanity's future. He was fighting for his place in a war he didn't fully understand. "Captain, we've received a message from the colonies," the communications officer said. "They've requested a private transmission with you." Alec's gaze shifted from the view screen to the officer. The colonies. After everything that had just transpired, he had no idea what they could want now. But he agreed, gesturing for the transmission to come through. The screen flickered, and the face of a woman appeared. She was older than him, but there was something familiar about her. It wasn't until she spoke that Alec's heart stopped in his chest. "Alec," the woman said softly, her eyes filled with an emotion he couldn't quite place. "It's your mother. I know this is a lot to take in, but I need you to listen carefully." His breath caught. His mother. After all these years, he had assumed she was dead, just like his father. But now, here she was, alive and in the middle of this mess. The woman who had been a part of the same war, the same ancient order. "Mom?" Alec's voice broke as he spoke, years of pain and confusion flooding him. "Where have you been? Why didn't you tell me?" "I didn't have a choice, Alec," she said quietly, her voice filled with sorrow. "When your father disappeared, I had to go into hiding. The war, it was never what you thought it was. The truth is, we were part of something far bigger. The ancient order your father spoke of. It wasn't just about conquering the stars. It was about survival. The survival of humanity, and the balance of power across the universe." Alec felt his world tilt. "You're telling me the whole war, the council, the fleets, all of it, was about something bigger?" "Yes," she replied. "The order, Alec. It's not some faction. It's an ancient network that has been manipulating the balance of power in the galaxy for millennia. They created the wars, the empires, the alliances, not for dominance, but to maintain control. Control over something far more dangerous than any weapon or fleet: knowledge." Alec was silent for a long time, processing the enormity of her words. "And now they want me. Why me?" "Because you're the key," she said, her voice filled with regret. "Your father knew you would be. You've been groomed for this role your entire life, even before you were born. They want you to lead humanity into this new age where the balance is kept and the Order's influence remains unchallenged." "But Alec," she hesitated, "you have a choice. You don't have to follow this path. You don't have to be a puppet in their game." Alec's heart raced. It was all too much, too fast. The truth about his parents, the war, the order, it was a tangled web that he had never asked to be a part of. He had always thought he was just another soldier, fighting for humanity's freedom. But now, he realized, he was part of something far greater than he had ever imagined. "I don't know what to do," Alec whispered, his voice trembling. "I don't even know who I am anymore." His mother's gaze softened, her voice quiet. "You're still you, Alec. You always will be. But now you have to make the choice. Do you continue the fight for humanity's freedom, or do you take control of your destiny and lead humanity into the unknown? The order is out there, watching, waiting, but you can change the course of this war. You can break free from the cycle." Alec was silent for a long time. His mind raced with the implications of everything his mother had just told him. He had been a soldier, a leader, fighting to protect humanity. But now, the war wasn't just about survival. It was about a legacy that stretched back millennia, about the power of an ancient order that had shaped the galaxy from the shadows. The tension in his chest grew unbearable. The weight of the decision before him was heavier than any weapon, any ship, any battle. Could he walk away from everything he had fought for? Could he take control of his own fate and defy the expectations of a centuries-old order? "Mom, what do you want me to do?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "I want you to make the choice that's right for you," she said softly. "This is your fight now. But remember, whatever you decide, you'll have the strength to see it through. You always have." The transmission ended abruptly, leaving Alec in stunned silence. The room around him seemed to close in, the weight of his choices pressing down on him. He was no longer just a captain in the human fleet. He was a player in a game that spanned the galaxy, a game he didn't even understand. And the stakes were higher than anything he had ever imagined. For days, Alec walked the ship's corridors in a daze, unsure of what to do. The fleet had returned to the human colonies, and while the immediate threat had been pushed back, the war was far from over. The Council had been defeated for now, but who knew when another threat would emerge? And what about the strange ships that had attacked? Who were they, and what was their true purpose? Alec knew he couldn't hide from the truth anymore. He had to make a decision. He couldn't ignore the legacy his parents had left him, but at the same time, he couldn't be bound by it. One night, as the Vanguard drifted through the stars, Alec stood at the observation deck, looking out at the vastness of space. The stars were beautiful, but they felt cold now. Reminder of the war that had just been fought, and the war that was still coming. "Captain." It was his first officer, walking up beside him. Alec glanced at her, but didn't speak right away. She stood quietly next to him, her gaze fixed on the stars. "Do you ever wonder what it's all for?" she asked softly. Alec didn't answer at first, but after a moment he nodded. "Yeah, all the time." They stood in silence, the weight of their choices hanging between them. The war had changed everything. For the first time in his life, Alec wasn't sure what came next, but as the stars twinkled ahead of them, he knew one thing for certain: no matter what happened, he would face it with everything he had. "I don't have the answers," Alec said finally, turning to face his officer. "But I know one thing. I'm not going to let anyone else decide my fate. Not the Council, not the Order, no one." She nodded, her eyes reflecting the same determination that burned in Alec's chest. "Then we fight," she said simply. And so they would. The Vanguard drifted on, its course uncertain, but its crew resolute. Whatever came next, Alec knew he wouldn't face it alone. The future was uncertain, the war far from over. But for the first time, he felt ready to take control of his own destiny. The galaxy had tried to shape him, but now, he would shape his own path. As the ship moved toward the horizon of the stars, Alec's thoughts turned to the future. The battle might be won, but the war was just beginning. The Order, the unknown forces watching from the shadows, They would be back. But Alec had learned something important. No matter how vast or ancient the conflict, the human spirit could never be extinguished. The fight would continue, and in the end, humanity would rise. The story wasn't over. It was only just beginning.